Yo, what's going on, guys? It's been a while since I dropped a video here on YouTube. In the last video, I think I talked about the gym that I was at, kind of like burning down or whatever, having the issues they had. But I think I have found a new gym to film out of, so I am hoping to start putting out more videos again, especially given that I have now started my contest prep, which is going to end somewhere around July and August. That's when I plan to compete anyways. But the topic of this video, I'm going to show some training footage later, but what I really want to talk about is basically how to level up. And I'm going to illustrate this by using comparison photos of myself as an example. So on the left, you have the start of my last contest prep. On the right, you have the start of my current contest prep. What you should see right off the bat is a significant improvement in muscularity across the board on the right side. Keep in mind that in both photos, I am the same weight. I'm 202 pounds in both photos. On the picture on the left is about 8.5 years of training. On the right is about 10 years of training. And in between both photos is a 1 full year off season. Now you might have noticed that I specifically pointed out my training age in both of these photos, and that is specifically to disprove this statement that frustrates me beyond belief and that is super popular these days, especially among newer lifters who say, I've reached my genetic potential.
Wrong.
Or I've maxed out my genetic potential.
Wrong.
And I think one of the reasons you see this statement made so much is because there's so many pseudo experts running around on social media blackpilling everybody into believing that after 5 years of lifting there is no more progress to be made, or the progress that you're going to make is so minuscule that it's almost negligible. It's not even noticeable. Once you get past some certain arbitrary number of years as a lifter, you can basically expect to make almost zero progress. And what pretty much everybody fails to understand who makes statements like that is that if you haven't been nailing these variables that I'm going to talk about day in and day out since the day you started lifting, and on top of that, you haven't been lifting for 15 to 20 years, doing those things day in and day out, you are just nowhere near close to your genetic potential. If you take a look at someone like me, 9 years on the left, 10 years on the right, I should not be able to make this progress, right? Being, that advanced as a lifter. Progress like this should not be possible. But again, if you are not controlling the variables that I'm talking about, you are nowhere near close to 100%. And to reach your genetic potential, you have to be 100% for 15 to 20 years. Most people haven't even been 100% for 1 year, and I am an example of that. Now, before I get into all these variables, it is important to note that they are all dependent variables. They are not interdependent variables, meaning if one is off, it throws the whole equation off. It's like a part of a machine not functioning. That stops the entire machine from not functioning because that one part, despite all the other parts still being on point and in perfect working condition. So that is an important caveat with all the things that I am going to talk about here. And for that reason, I'm basically going to list everything that I talk about as number one in importance, because all these boxes need to be checked off in order to have this work. So number one is going to be sleep and sleep hygiene. Now, in order to have good sleep, you're going to need to have quality sleep hygiene surrounding that. So one of the ways that I worked on this was for sleep hygiene, I gave myself specific set and wake times. So every day I'm going to bed at about the same time, and every day I'm waking up at about the same time, regardless of if it's a weekend or a weekday. Also, in regards to sleep hygiene, I stopped doing very stimulating things close to bed. So I give myself anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of things that are non-stimulating that really help me to wind down and prepare my body to get ready to have good quality sleep. And then along with that, with sleep, one of the things that I started doing was sleeping with earplugs. Now, this in combination with kind of the things around sleep hygiene really helped to improve my sleep quality. I very rarely wake up in the middle of the night anymore. I almost always sleep completely through. So making all those changes really helped my sleep and my sleep hygiene. Number one, again, is going to be establishing a step count for yourself in the off season. In the off season, it is very easy to get lazy, to be unregulated with your step count, to have lots of days where you're 2,000 steps, 3,000 steps. This was something that happened in my previous off season. Something that I remedied this off season was giving myself a higher step count that I had to hit every single day. For me, that was 7,000. So 7,000 steps per day in the off season. It really helped to alleviate a lot of my aches and pains just simply by moving around, by not sitting for hours and hours and hours a day. You know, after a couple hours, go on a 15-minute walk. Another couple hours, go on a 15-minute walk. And in that way, I'm able to hit my step count, but it also made a big difference in terms of how my body felt overall. And I think it also helped to contribute to what I just talked about, which was sleep quality, because now I had been expending more energy during the day and my body was, more receptive to going to sleep when it should. Number one, again, is going to be regulating caffeine intake. This is something I previously didn't do that I put a heavy emphasis on for this past off season. And I think it's something that is commonly overlooked nowadays, especially with how many stimulants are out there. You got people drinking coffee all the time, energy drinks all the time, pre-workout on top of that. So just constant bombarding your body with stimulants. And this is something that I got into the habit of, in previous off seasons and just in the past in general. So this off season, I really dialed that back and I made sure that I tracked my caffeine intake. So now what I do is about 30 minutes after I wake up, I take a 200 milligram caffeine pill. And then along with that, I will have about half a cup to a cup of coffee. And then that is my cutoff point. Then I have no more stims throughout the rest of the day. So my caffeine intake is pretty much, around like 250, maybe at the max 300. Number one, yet again, is going to be optimizing digestion or paying very close attention to digestion. This is again something that I did not do in the past that I put heavy emphasis into in this off season. And some of the ways that I did this was, for one, no matter how deep I was into the off season, I still included fruits and vegetables in my diet. Now, it's very typical that the deeper and deeper you get into an off season, that those are the first foods to go within your diet, because typically people think that including those things is going to make it harder to eat the high amounts of food that they need to eat. This is something that I previously thought as well. However, while keeping these things in, I found that I was actually able to eat more food and it was able to digest better. And this is because my overall gut health and digestion was in a much better place by keeping fruits and vegetables in play throughout the duration of my off season. The next thing I did, which was another really big change for me too, and something that I think really helped, was developing training day and non-training day macros. So rather than, smashing food every single day, I would have it so a training day is a decent bit higher than a non-training day. And what this would do is give kind of my digestion a break for a day or two, for however many days off I had in training. It might be 1 day off, it might be 2 day off, but giving my digestion that 1 day or 2 day break really made a big difference going into the training day when I had higher training day macros. And the discrepancy for me was about 150 grams of carbs from a training day to a non-training day. And the last number one is going to be training harder. Now, there is a lot of variables that encompass this one variable, so I'm going to talk about those in another video, but just to give you an idea, some of those variables that go into this one are going to be things like understanding your capacity for volume, where that is, exercise selection, prioritizing recovery, all kinds of things like that. There you have it. Those are all the variables that I took into consideration for this past off season and that I put a heavy emphasis on. They were able to help me progress more than I ever have before. Again, keep in mind, all these variables operate as a fragile ecosystem. So when one is off, it throws everything off. For example, let's just take a look at caffeine. Let's say you have a very high caffeine intake. Most likely that is going to start affecting your digestion. It's also going to make it much harder for you to push calories high in the off season because caffeine is an appetite suppressant. On top of that, you're then probably getting poor sleep quality because your stimulants are so high. You're getting bad sleep quality, which then leads to poor training. And as you can see, it's all kind of snowballs together, and when one is off, it just affects everything else. If you're interested in coaching, feel free to DM me on Instagram or shoot me an email to the email in the description box below. I'm going to leave you guys with the rest of this leg press set, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.
Oh!